Close the door. Leave the world behind. They say the Black Forest doesn't take people. It simply forgets where it put them. In December of last year, a hiker named Elias Thorne stepped off a marked trail near Triberg. He had the best gear money could buy: GPS, thermal layers, emergency beacons. But the forest doesn't care about technology when the white silence descends. Elias wasn't found for 3 weeks. But his journal was found within 48 hours. And what he wrote in those final pages is why locals refuse to enter the woods after the first frost. Tonight, I'm going to read you exactly what happened during those 48 hours. Elias was a man of logic, a structural engineer from London. He viewed the world in angles and load-bearing capacities. He wanted a challenge, a solo winter trek through the heart of Germany's most famous woodland. The first 10 miles were a dream. The pines stood like silent giants, draped in heavy, pristine snow. The air was so cold it felt brittle, breaking in his lungs with every breath. By 3 p.m. the light began to fail. In the Schwarzwald, winter light doesn't fade. It swallowed. A mist rolled in, thick and tasting of iron. Elias checked his GPS. The screen flickered, the blue dot spinning aimlessly. He wasn't worried yet. He had a compass, but as he pulled it from his pocket, the needle didn't point north. It swung in a slow rhythmic circle, as if it were dancing to a music he couldn't hear. He was off trail. The trees here were older. Their branches twisted into shapes that looked uncomfortably like reaching arms. That's when he saw it, a cabin. It wasn't on his topographic map. It was small, built of dark, unpeeled logs that looked almost black against the snow. There was no smoke from the chimney, but the door was unlatched. Elias entered, desperate to escape the plummeting temperature. Inside it was strangely warm. Not the warmth of a heater, but the lingering heat of a body. On the table sat a single wooden bowl, and a candle that had just been blown out, a thin wisp of smoke still curled into the rafters. "Hello?" he called. Silence. The kind of silence that feels heavy, like it's pressing against your eardrums. He decided to wait out the night. He rolled out his sleeping bag on the floor. But as he lay there, he heard it, thump, thump, thump. Something was walking on the roof. Not a bird, not a squirrel. These were heavy, deliberate footsteps. The footsteps of something that walked on 2 legs. The footsteps stopped directly above his head. Elias held his breath, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. Then came the voice. It wasn't a scream or a growl. It was a whisper, coming through the cracks in the ceiling logs. It whispered his name. Elias. He didn't move. He couldn't. How did it know his name? He hadn't spoken to a soul in 3 days. He grabbed his tactical flashlight and shone it upward. The light passed through the gaps, illuminating nothing, just old wood and dust. But then a drop of liquid fell. It landed on his cheek. It was warm. He wiped it away and looked at his hand. It wasn't blood. It was sap, thick, black pine sap smelling so strongly of resin it made his head swim. He realized then that the cabin wasn't built of trees. It was part of them. The walls were pulsing. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the room was shrinking. The logs were growing inward, inch by inch, closing the space around him. Panic finally took him. Elias scrambled for the door, but it wouldn't budge. It wasn't locked. It had fused with the frame. He threw his shoulder against it once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th try, the wood groaned, a sound like a dying animal, and snapped. He tumbled out into the night, but the forest he had entered was gone. The trees had moved. Where there had been a clearing, there was now a wall of thorns. The path was swallowed. He ran. He ran until his lungs burned like hot coals. Behind him, he could hear the forest shifting, the sound of wood snapping and needles brushing against needles following him. He looked back once. Through the mist, he saw the cabin. It wasn't a house anymore. It was standing on root-like limbs, its door hanging open like a hungry mouth. It wasn't a shelter. It was a trap. Elias Thorne's last journal entry was written at 4 BB. Count, it was only one sentence. The trees are tired of being still. When the search party found the journal, it was lying in a perfect circle of salt at the base of a 1,000-year-old oak. There were no footprints leading to it, and no footprints leading away. We like to think we are the masters of the wild because we have maps and satellites. But sometimes, the old world reminds us that we are just visitors, and visitors should never overstay their welcome. Good night and stay safe. The woods are deeper than you think.